Yo, party people, number 2. Okay, so I'm in Revelations chapter 1, verse 17. So if you have not seen the first video explains what I'm going to be talking about. So I'm focusing today on just one verse. The fact that, let me actually just read that verse to you. Chapter 1, verse 17. It says, this is when John is at the very beginning encountering Jesus, right? And it says, and when I saw him is capitalized, so it's Jesus. It says, I fell at his feet as dead, but he laid his right hand on me, saying to me, and then it goes on to describe what Jesus says. So I want to focus on the idea of the right hand. So I just described at the end of the last verse, God, the last video, the first place, there's a lot of places in the Bible that talks about the right hand. So the reason I want to focus on this is because every time you see this, I want you to recognize that there's nothing random in the Bible. So when it says in Revelations 1:17 that when he fell on his face, at the presence of Christ, and it says specifically that Jesus placed his right hand on him and said to him, do not be afraid, and began to speak to him about and declaring who he was, because the next few verses are in red, of course, in Revelations chapter 1, that it is not random, that there's a reason that he said he placed his right hand on me. Okay. So the first place you're going to see this idea of the right hand and blessing, and often when you see the mention of the right hand, it speaks of power, it speaks of authority. Many times it's prophetic, all right? It's a prophetic thing. It's a prophetic statement. It's also many times referring to Jesus himself. Jesus is involved. Jesus is being prophetically called. Jesus is being referenced. So again, here it's Jesus himself who places his right hand on John. So there's authority there. There's a call. There's a prophetic thing there. So let me just read to you some of the places in the Bible where you're going to see the right hand mentioned and in what context. So I mentioned the last video. You see in chapter 48 in Genesis when Joseph brings in his 2 children to be blessed by Jacob as Jacob is dying, right? And so what he does is he places the children in such a way that Jacob's right hand will be on his oldest son, because he wants his oldest son to receive the predominant blessing, which comes from the right hand, right? But Joseph reverses that. Jacob reverses that. He puts his right hand on the younger son, and when Joseph gets upset about it, Jacob says, no, this is the way it's supposed to be. The older son will also have a great calling, but the younger son is going to rule over the older son. So he is getting the predominant blessing, and there's authority and power in the blessing of the right hand. Okay, so that's the first place you see it. So definitely go study that because there's more to it. And then where are we at here? So here I've got in Psalms, and there's probably a lot in Psalms. I only have a few things here. But in Psalms 21, you see, this is a psalm of David. So, of course, David is a type of Jesus. David is prophetically, often he's often a foreshadow, right, of some of the things that Jesus represents. So here this is a psalm of David in chapter 20. It says in verse 6, now I know that the Lord saves his anointed. He will answer him from his holy heaven with the saving strength of his right hand. Then it says, some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we will remember the name of the Lord our God. So you also see often the name of God and right hand right in the same context, right? Because the name of God is also another whole study you want to do. So here, with the saving strength of his right hand. So they often have said in the commentary also that whenever you see the right hand, it's also referring back to his removing them from Egypt, right? So there's a context there as well. So that's Psalm 20. And then we see in Psalm 89, it's mentioned a couple of times. So it says in Psalm 89, verse 12, it says, the north and the south, you have created them. Tabor and Hermon rejoice in your name. So we see his name there. You have a mighty arm, strong is your hand, and high is your right hand. So that's, this is a psalm by Ethan, an Ezrahite, and he's worshiping God, right? And then further on in the same psalm, verse 25, it says, also I will set, then he's talking about how God is going to protect them. And it says, I will set his hand over the sea and his right hand over the rivers. He shall cry to me, you are my Father, my God, and the rock of my salvation. So that's another reference to the right hand and the strength of the right hand and the power and authority of the right hand. Psalm 98. This is says, "Oh, sing to the Lord a new song, for he has done marvelous things. His right hand and his holy arm have gained him the victory." So that's another example. Where is it in Isaiah? So in Isaiah chapter 62, this is Isaiah. Of course, Isaiah is a powerful book. So I'm just going to read verse 6, and you're going to see it in verse 8. It says, "I have set watchmen on your walls, O Jerusalem." So this is Isaiah speaking, or God speaking through Isaiah. "They shall never hold their peace day or night. You who make mention of the Lord, do not keep silent, and give him no rest till he establishes, until he makes Jerusalem a praise in the earth. The Lord has sworn by his right hand and by the arm of his strength. Surely I will no longer give your grain as food to your enemies." Okay, so that's another place where you see it is in Isaiah. And then you see in Lamentations, chapter 2. Now, Lamentations is written by Jeremiah, and this is when Jeremiah is weeping over what he's seen is going to be coming upon Jerusalem. And it says, chapter 2, verse 3, "He has cut off in fierce anger every horn of Israel. He has drawn back his right hand from before the enemy." And then it says down in verse 4, "Standing like an enemy, he has bent his bow," this is God, "with his right hand like an adversary." So at the previous verse, it talks about God removing his right hand of protection, and then it talks about how he's using his right hand as an adversary against Israel because of their sin. So that's in Lamentations chapter 2. And then in Daniel, you see when Daniel's having a vision at the end of chapter 12. And they think that this is part of the prophetic aspect of the right hand, but they believe that he's actually seen a vision of Jesus here, the pre-incarnate Jesus. And chapter 12, verse 7 says, "Then I heard the man clothed in linen," who they believe is Jesus, "who was above the waters of the river, when he held up his right hand and his left hand to heaven, and swore by him who lives forever, that it shall be for a time, times, and half a time. And when the power of the holy people has been completely shattered, all these things shall be finished." So that was a prophetic section there. Then we've got Zechariah, and this is Zechariah chapter 3. "Then he showed me Joshua, the high priest, standing before the angel of the Lord, and Satan standing at his right hand to oppose him." So that is, I was going to mention this one, because I'm glad I got to this one, because this is really interesting. So Satan standing at the angel. So then he showed me Joshua the high priest, and Satan was standing at Joshua the high priest's right hand. He was accusing him. So what is powerful about that is Satan is, again, usurping. He's in a position of, he's trying to claim a position at the right hand that he doesn't have, right? So that's a really interesting section right there in Zechariah. And then when you go on to read it, you see how Satan is corrected. And then let's see what's the next one. I mean, this goes on and on and on. Let's see, where is it here in Matthew? I've got it here in Matthew. Where is it? Gosh darn it, I didn't underline it, so I'm going to skip that one. Sorry. I'm in Matthew chapter 23 or 22. Oh yeah, here. Chapter 22. The Lord said, so here in Matthew chapter 22, verse 44, they're quoting David in the book of Psalms, and it says, "The Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand till I make your enemies your footstool." And that's God speaking to Jesus. And so this is where Jesus was trying to say to them, who is so they said to him, while the Pharisees were gathered together, Jesus asked them, saying, "What do you think about the Christ? Whose son is he?" This is Jesus speaking. They said to him, "The son of David." He said to them, "Well, then how then does David say in the Spirit, call him Lord, saying, 'The Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand till I make your enemies your footstool'? If David then calls him Lord, how is he then his son?" Then it says no one was able to answer him a word. And from that day on, did anyone dare question him anymore? And I'm out of time. So anyways, it goes on and on. There's so much more. If you want to do a study on the right hand of God, or the right hand, it's powerful. And many of times it's prophetically speaking, and many times, especially in the New Testament, you're seeing Christ being seated at the right hand of God, and the right hand is referencing Christ himself. So anyways, there we go. We started the book of Revelations, got through about chapter 1, verse 17. All right, we'll do some more tomorrow. Love you. Read your Bible. Peace.